All right, thank you guys for joining again. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you're calling in from. My name is Randy Backus. I work with the Sage ERP X3 team, and I'm going to be taking you through Sage Enterprise Intelligence for Sage ERP X3. Before we begin, I think it's probably worthwhile for us to talk a little bit about what business intelligence is, because it means different things to different people, of course. And obviously the systems that we're using right now have some elements of business intelligence in there. But it's helpful to have an understanding of what business intelligence can provide you with for your own specific business. So I've got just a basic example here. Before I actually even get into the example, let's talk about some of the statistics that we've pulled from small and medium-sized businesses. First and foremost, 46% of businesses recognize that too little data is used for business analysis. So not having access to the key information they need to make the strategic decisions that they need to be making. That's a key figure there. Tie that with the fact that 1/3 of managers in small and medium-sized businesses say they need more data to make decisions. So just having your ERP systems, having your Excel spreadsheets and things in place really means nothing if you can't sort of get the data that you've been mining all along in your ERP system and pulling it out and presenting it in meaningful ways. And one specific example of that is only 12% are able to measure marketing influence on sales and pipeline. So for those of you out there that are spending money in terms of advertising, in terms of sales investments, and in terms of marketing dollars, how do you know that you're getting your return on that investment? These are some of the things that business intelligence can certainly help with. And so what is business intelligence? Let's talk about that first and foremost. So I've got a quick example here just to put it in perspective for us. I've got 6 invoices that have been raised over from March to August. I wish it were August right now. Unfortunately, it's still cold in March, but I've got an example of several invoices that have been entered in my ERP system. And this is how we view our data in our ERP system, of course. It's very transactional, and yes, we do have the ability to print reports that'll tell us, how many days late a customer is from paying and what products have been sold and things like that. Of course, we have the ability to get at that information. But business intelligence is really taking it one step further and allowing us to analyze trends, allowing us to understand, what those numbers mean. So it sort of gives us a broader perspective to the data that we're entering in our ERP system. So getting beyond the transactional and being able to have the information to make those strategic decisions that we need to make for our business. So for example here, I've just got 6 invoices up. Business intelligence would help us to identify things like seasonal trends. For example, I don't know if anybody noticed, but I've got 3 invoices that have been generated in March, and in all the other months, there's only been 1 invoice. Maybe I ran a promotion in March, or maybe people are buying things more in March than other times of the year. That could help me in terms of pricing, in terms of offering discounts for customers. So that's some of the things that business intelligence would allow me to take a look at. Another example is, who's our best customer here? How do we identify who our best customer is out of these 6 invoices as an example? Well, there's a couple of ways that we can do it. First and foremost, if you notice, customer B has 3 invoices out of the 6. So there's certainly a regular customer of ours. They're certainly buying on a regular basis. But does that mean they're our best customer? It could. But we also have a situation where I've got customer D who bought something from us in June, and that invoice happens to have the highest margin. So we're making the most money on that one invoice. Does that mean that customer D is our best customer? Again, business intelligence can help us understand based on how we define who our best customer is and help us identify those best customers. What about our best product? Again, another example here. In one case, if I'm using a judgment in terms of how fast my items are moving, I've got widget A on 5 out of the 6 invoices. Okay? Business intelligence would help me identify that that's a fast-moving item for sure. Okay? But again, I go back to that invoice in June for customer D. That invoice has the highest margin. So depending on what we define as our best product, Business intelligence can take those transactions that we've got in our system and make sense of them so that we can start making strategic business decisions around the information that these transactions are providing us with. Some other examples at a high level would be if we had sales rep information, who's our best sales rep? What about order efficiency, being able to fulfill orders that have been entered in the system and then translating them to invoices? What about identifying customers as preferred customers based on how quickly they pay us? And finally, what about revising our restocking or our reorder points based on the fact that, for example, widget A is moving very, very fast? Again, these are some of the things that, yes, we can take a look at these at a transactional level, but taking the data that we get, we are able to understand seasonal trends. We're able to see things from a completely different perspective by having tools such as business intelligence. And that's where Sage Enterprise Intelligence really comes into play here. Sage Enterprise Intelligence is a business intelligence tool for Sage ERP X3 that really allows us to get at that information, allow us to view that high-level information very quickly and very easily and very effectively, of course. The key to Sage Enterprise Intelligence is that it empowers users to be able to take the data that they've entered in their ERP system, in Sage ERP X3, and build the reports and views the way they want to view them that makes most impact and most meaning to them and their functions. Okay? And the last thing is it really simplifies the process for sharing information across the board. Once we create these views, everybody can be on the same page. Everybody can interpret the numbers the same way because we're all looking at the same information in the same way. And that's the real key to Sage Enterprise Intelligence. Now, you're going to see some of these in the demonstration. But just to let you know, Sage Enterprise Intelligence includes many different tools and ways of presenting that data. So we've got the ability to pull data from multiple sources. We've got live connections to Sage ERP X3, and that's critical because we're looking at information in real time. It has the ability to create dashboards. We've got the ability to create charts of different kinds. We can work with big data. So for example, building data cubes, OLAP cubes. We can work across multiple devices, and you'll see that in the demonstration. And finally, we can get into presenting the information in different ways, whether it's Excel or whether it's on a Google map, for example, with geospatial analysis, which sounds really technical, but it's really simple. So there's three different interfaces that we're going to see today in the demonstration for how we can work with Sage Enterprise Intelligence. And the first one is being able to pull up our views and create new views of data using the web. The second tool is mobile, being able to see those views on a smart device. And finally, Excel. Whenever we talk about business intelligence, we can't ignore the fact that most of us, particularly those of us in the financial space, but most of us in general, crunch numbers in Excel. And so Sage Enterprise Intelligence gives us an Excel tool to pull the information out of our ERP system and crunch the numbers to make it more meaningful for us. So I'm going to switch over to Sage ERP X3. And this is my dashboard in Sage ERP X3. If anybody has attended a webinar of mine in the past, you know in the wintertime, I'm a big fan of envisioning myself being somewhere else than in Toronto, or in today's case in Pittsburgh. So I've got a nice little picture of Fiji, and if anybody was curious about the weather in Fiji, the weather is here. And apparently the sun isn't always shining in Fiji because it's partly cloudy. But having said that, this is a dashboard that we mostly, that most of us that are using Sage ERP X3 are probably familiar with. I have the ability to pull requesters or user-defined inquiries out onto my dashboard. I have the ability to see my information here in different ways. These are my key performance indicators. These are the things that I need to see first and foremost when I log into X3. But X3 also gives us the ability to navigate through the system using visual process flows. And so I've got a visual process flow here for Sage Enterprise Intelligence. And the first thing to mention with Sage Enterprise Intelligence is that there's two sides of this, right? There's a configuration tool, which gives us the ability to define the processes. The processes are basically the data that we're selecting to build our reports. And it gives us the ability to manage our users. And we also have the ability to build data cubes here. But that's the technical side of things. That's allowing us to choose what data we'd like to pull out of X3 or any other database. Okay? That's the technical side. From a user perspective, it's really the reporting that comes into play. Taking that data that we've selected from the configuration tools and reporting it in ways that are meaningful to us. So here's the three interfaces that we mentioned, the web, mobile, and the Excel add-in. I'm going to start out in the web because you'll probably spend the majority of your time in the web building the views. The first thing to mention as it loads is I'm doing this off of Google Chrome. It is browser agnostic. So whether you're using Internet Explorer or Safari or Google Chrome or Firefox, you'd be able to use Sage Enterprise Intelligence. It's a browser-based app, and it allows you to have access to all that functionality regardless of the browser that you're using. The other thing to mention as I'm on this screen here is you'll notice that there is a login. We do manage users separately from our ERP users, and that's a critical point for those of you that are thinking that this is a tool that requires me to set up my Sage ERP X3 users in Sage ERP X3 to have access to Sage Enterprise Intelligence. The reality is, when we're talking about business intelligence and we're talking about sharing information across the organization, it's important to know that a tool like Sage Enterprise Intelligence doesn't require every user to be an ERP user. There might be users in your organization, for example, salespeople, that may not have access to your ERP system, but still need equal access to the information that ERP can provide them with. So Sage Enterprise Intelligence allows you to set up your own group of users and your own access rights to the data that you're going to be reporting in Sage Enterprise Intelligence. I'm going to go ahead and log in. And this takes me to the place where I would be building or running what we call views in Sage Enterprise Intelligence. The data that we select in the configuration part is called a process. The way we view the data in that process is called a view. And I'm going to take a very simple example here to start. So I've got a demonstration reports folder. Yes, we can store our views and our processes in different folders, and we can name them things that are meaningful to us. So I'm going to just select demonstration reports and keep it simple. I've got a process here that allows me to report on customer invoice information. To create a report or to create a view off of this process, all I need to do is right-click. And you can see here I have the ability to access whether I want to create a new worksheet or a chart or a gauge or a map or what have you. Okay. I'm going to simply select a new worksheet here. I'm going to call it My Worksheet. Not being very creative here, but you'll understand why in a little while. And so this is the design area of Sage Enterprise Intelligence now. So I've right-clicked, I've said I'm going to create a worksheet, and now I have the ability to see on the right-hand side here the different pieces of information that I can build or that I can work with on this particular view, on this report. I've got dimensions, which are ways that I can group my data together. I've got measures, which are my dollars, my quantities, and things like that. And I've got descriptions to help understand a little bit better what I'm reporting. I also have the ability to build in user-calculated columns if I need to. To build a view, to build a report, it's extremely simple. I just take what I need and drag it onto my report. So for example, I'm going to start with my company. Maybe that's my highest level. And then I'm going to go to my site, my location. Under my location, I'm going to select my customer. And under my customer, I'm going to select my product. Now those are just the ways I'm grouping my data. You can think of those as rows. In my columns, I'm going to present my total invoice amount, so my sales amount. And you'll see here, instantly it's built my report for me. So this is my first company, my second company, and my third company. And if I go one level down, I'm now seeing my location. I go one level further, I'm now seeing my customers. Go one level further, I'm now seeing the products that that customer is purchasing. Okay. I can go even further than that by putting in maybe the invoice number and putting in maybe the product description as an example. And all I need to do is drag and drop and move that over. A specific example of that is let's take this report and make it a little bit more meaningful to me. I'm operating across companies, as you can see here. It's not helpful for me to see my companies in rows. I want to see my companies across my columns. So I want to break up my total invoice amount into companies across columns. So I'm going to go ahead and move that group from group down to pivot. Instantly now, I'm pivoting my information in a different way, something that's more meaningful to me. I'm now seeing at a glance here that company 20 is by far doing the most in terms of sales. Okay? But I still have my location, drilling down into my customer, drilling down into my product. Okay? We can also do things like, for example, with my locations, I might want to see who my top 3 customers are as an example. Or in the case of my locations, I've got a lot of locations here. I want to just choose my top 3 locations or something. I can right click, I can go to advanced options, and I can say, you know what, I'm going to show my top 3 by these amounts here, and I'm going to say OK. And it's now showing me my top 3 locations, my top 3 sites that I'm selling from. I still have all the other data sitting here in the others section. Okay. If I don't want location anymore, I can actually even remove location, make it even more simple now. I've got my companies and I've got the customers across the board here. Okay. I can also highlight, using conditional formatting, my numbers. So I can right click here and I can go into column formatting and I can create a new rule. Those of you that have worked in Excel, this is a fairly similar process to conditional formatting. And I can say, you know what, for my total invoice number, for any value that is greater than 10,000, okay, I'm going to give myself a little thumbs up. Okay, and I'm going to color it in green. Okay, so the number is going to be green, and I'm going to see a little thumbs up. I'm going to say OK, and you'll notice now those call-outs are happening. So, I mean, I tend to think on the positive side of things, you're probably going to want to put like a red or a thumbs down or something to numbers that you want to pay a little bit more attention to, right? So you have the ability to apply conditional formatting, and that conditional formatting goes down the level. So you can see here, that's the sum at the customer level. Now I'm looking at my products, and you can see here, that's now at my product level. And I can go further down if necessary as well. Okay. So we have the ability to apply conditional formatting and what have you to our numbers to really highlight the areas that we need to pay attention to. We also have the ability to apply filters at the top here. Okay. And one last thing as an example here, just since I'm on the worksheet, I'm going to take the product description, bring it into my report. It's as easy as that. I'm just dropping in I'm dropping in a field, and now I can start when I scroll down or go down a level, I'm now seeing my product description. It might be meaningful to me. One last thing to mention again while we're on a worksheet is I have the ability to drill into Sage ERP X3 right from this view. So I've created link outs at various levels here. At one level here, I've got my customer record. I can right click and I can say, you know what, I want to link to. And it's got the ability for me to see here that I've created a link between that field and the X3 customer. I can double click on that. And I don't know if you saw the splash screen. It happened very, very fast. But my customer is open now. I've logged into X3 and my customer record is open now. From here, I can go and take a look at my customer statistics, my risk analysis, and things like that, or my BP situation. Take it one other level, I can actually take a look at my mouse. So I'm at a product level. Again, I can right click, I can go link to, and I can see my item maintenance. I can come in here, and I can see my mouse. And for the record, that's a much better mouse than the one I'm using right now. And then the last point is I added the product description to show you that we can actually put values from our report and populate website entry fields with those values. So I've created a simple link out to a Google search where it's going to populate my Google search field with that value. So I'm going to simply double click here. And now for anybody that wanted to learn about a mouse, a standard mouse, we've got all the information here. But think about that in a real world context, right? Think about it, for example, having a shipping report as a worksheet, having a tracking number, and being able to right-click and have a link out to use that tracking number on a shipping website. So that I click that link, I say link out, it goes to that shipping website, and it automatically gives me a tracking report. Okay? So those are some of the things that we can do. I'm going to go ahead and save this. And you'll notice when I go ahead and save this view, I can assign it to different people. So again, based on my user settings and rights, I can assign it to different groups or individuals. And I have the ability to save it with filters engaged or without filters. So if I wanted to create different flavors of this worksheet, maybe one for the current year, maybe one for a particular company, and so on, I'd have the ability to save it with filters. But I'm just going to save it as a worksheet here. Okay. We're going to do the same thing, but this time we're going to create a chart. Okay. I'm going to call it My Chart. I'm going to say OK. And it's a similar design experience here. All I'm doing is dragging and dropping. The only difference is I'm dragging it down to the organizer down on the bottom. I could have done that for the worksheet as well, but you'll notice that this is a multi-tab environment, so my worksheet still exists over here, and my chart is open as well. So I can have multiple views, multiple reports running at once. So I'm going to create this quite simply. Again, it's just the exact same report, but maybe just a different view. I'm going to look at it from a company perspective. Then underneath the company, I'm going to look at my customer. Then maybe under the customer, I want to see what product they've purchased. And in my columns, again, I'm just going to show my total invoice amount. Okay. Now, that's a bar chart. For those of us that are on the East Coast or on East Coast time, we just had lunch, so I think it's time for a pie. So I'm going to change this to a pie chart. Looks a little bit nicer to me. And I'm going to go into the chart properties here, and instead of showing the value, I'm just going to show a label here. Okay. Bear in mind that we also have the ability to create marked zones in our graph. So specifically for line charts and bar charts, you'll be able to specify perhaps a call-out zone, maybe like a sweet spot for a sales number or something like that. You'd be able to highlight that by referencing a marked zone. And I'm going to say OK here, and now that looks a little bit nicer. I've got my company references here. I know I'm selling mostly to my company 20. I can click on that. Takes me into the customers that I'm selling to. Click on that. Takes me into the products that that customer is purchasing. If I want to zoom back out, I can drill up by right-clicking. Okay, and get back. I'm going to go ahead and save this. And as you noticed, under the view type, we've got many, many different views. So I specified a pie, but we've got many other types of views, including scatter diagrams, and bubble charts, donuts. Ooh, donut might have been better. But I'll stick with the pie chart. I'm going to go ahead and save this. Okay. Again, I have the ability to save it with a filter or not. Okay. And that's just basically it. That's designing reports, and that's really as complex as it gets. Once you've got the data that you'd like to pull out, it's just a matter of dragging it onto your report and then creating the views the way you want to see them. Okay. So we've got several out-of-the-box reports that come standard with Sage Enterprise Intelligence. We've got many, and we break them down by basically module or key function in Sage ERP X3. So I've got an example here of a sales analysis, and you can see once I open up that folder and that process, I've got access to all of the views that are sitting in there. And to run a view, all I need to do is double-click. Now, none of these views are locked. These views are all open, free to edit. I can save a copy of this to make a change to it if I want, but I can also start working with this in different ways now. So again, I can start applying conditional formatting to call out numbers. I can add more information, as you can see here on the right. So for example, right now I'm looking at things in terms of years. Well, maybe I don't want years, or maybe I only want the current year. We have the ability to save filters, as you can see here. So I can simply double-click on that filter, and you'll notice it automatically applies the filter, and I can see that that filter is engaged on that view down at the bottom here. I also have the ability to change information, obviously, as well. So I tend to not look at things by year. It actually doesn't make sense to look at it by year now because it's not a multi-year report. What might make more sense is to look at it by sales rep. So I can, in fact, remove the year, look at it by sales rep to see how they're performing this year. Now, my sales reps are shared across the organization. My companies are a multi-company. I work in a multi-company environment, so it might be helpful for me to see, again, across companies, how my sales reps are performing. And this instantly now gives me a different way of looking at the information, all by simply dragging and dropping. I'm presenting the information in ways that are meaningful to me. Okay. I also have the ability to build graphs, as you saw, so I can actually run a sales rep. And I have the ability to create other types of graphs as well. So sales evolution would be a line chart, and it actually draws the line to represent the sale for me. Okay. So many different ways that we can present the information. And you'll see here that we actually have processes and views for many different parts of X3. So we've got CRM, we've got finance. Important thing to note with finance, again, is we have the ability to pull and build our own reports using these processes. So I've got a GL trial transaction details report here, but maybe I want a trial balance. I can simply right-click, create a new worksheet using that out-of-the-box process. I'm going to call this my trial balance. Okay. And I'm going to bring it my GL account. And for my amounts, my measures, I'm going to bring out my ledger debit and my ledger credit. Instantly now I have a trial balance. Now this is consolidated, of course, across all companies. But what I can do is I can now say, you know what, I want this by company code again. And underneath the company, maybe I'm dealing with dimensions, X3 dimensions. So maybe I'm dealing with a department. So now, even though I've broken it down by company, I now want a trial balance by department. And you can see now I've got it by department. Very quickly and very easily, I just created that in a couple of seconds. I'm going to go ahead and save that. Okay, and away we go. One of the other things that we have the ability to do with these processes is we have the ability to create what's called an info page. An info page allows us to run scripts for things like budget write-backs. So I have a budget entry here. I have the ability to create columns in my reports where I can actually enter information. I can enter budgets. And I have the ability to, if I view the info page here, select whether I want to load that column with the budget that's already in X3, or whether I want to take the entries from that write-back column and record it back into X3. So we have the ability to push and pull data as well. Now, the last thing to mention here, since we're in this command center here where all our views are, is you notice when I opened up the sales view that we have many, many different views under that process. You might think that that gets very cumbersome to build, but remember, it's a multi-user environment. Certain users would only have access to some of these views. But the nice thing about Sage Enterprise Intelligence is we always have an index of the views that we enter. And we don't have to do anything special. They're automatically, any new views that we create are automatically added under that index. So if I click on Search Views, it actually gives me a little snapshot of the view, and it lists all of my views here. This is the reason why I was calling everything My. Because it's very easy for me to type in the search My, and there's the chart that we created. There's the worksheet for the invoices that we created, and there's the trial balance that we just created. Again, didn't have to do anything special, but I can find those very easily. And I have the ability to take a view and run it by double-clicking right here. I also have the ability to identify my favorites as well. So if I go to my worksheet, I can just right-click and I can add it to my favorites, and likewise I can take my chart and add it to my favorites. And you can see here I've got a favorites panel where I can have quick and easy access to those views that are meaningful to me. Last thing to mention is in the web tool where we're building all these views is we have the ability to build a dashboard that pulls multiple views at the same time. So we've got a dashboard here. We can right-click to create a new dashboard. Again, I'm going to be very creative and call it My Dashboard. And I can drag and drop whatever views I want in here now. So maybe I want my customers by sales rep. So I've got a worksheet. And then maybe I want my sales evolution. I'm just dragging and dropping it in. It tiles it in different ways, but we can choose where that goes. and maybe I want my sales rep pie chart. Okay. There we go. I have the ability to take every section, each of these sections, and I can change the properties of the dashboard. So for this case, maybe I want it to present in a different theme. Okay. And you can see here instantly I've got 3 views running simultaneously. Okay, I can go ahead and save this. And I can close it. And now when I double click on my dashboard, rather than running 1 report, I'm running 3 at the same time. Now we also have the ability to apply what we call dynamic labels to those, but you're going to see that in a little while. And we also have the ability to apply filters to these. Okay? But that's the web tool. And we'll come back to the web tool in a little bit when we talk about distribution. But let's talk about some of the other interfaces that we've got now as well. And one of the interfaces that we have is a mobile interface. So if you've got an iPad or if you've got an Android tablet or if you've even got an iPhone, the views that you create in the web, you have access to on any mobile device. Okay? This is HTML5, so it's browser-based, but it works across, it's device agnostic, so it works across, oops. Sorry. There we go. I think I'm back there. All right. It works across any devices I was mentioning. So I've got an iPad here, and I can log in again. You can't circumvent the login process, so I've got to log in as a user. Go ahead and log in. And I have access now to all of the views that I created in the web view. And it's more than just a simple viewer to view my reports. Although I can use it to just view my reports, right? I can go into my sales, I can go to my sales analysis cube, or any one of those views that I've got. I have the ability to present the information in a table. All I'm doing is I'm touching on each one of these. But you'll see that I can go beyond just viewing these reports. I've got the ability to pivot the information in different ways as well. So I can simply touch the sales rep code, drag it over, and I'm now pivoting it in a different way. I have the ability to touch a line and touch the drill down button, and now I'm drilling down. I have the ability to do the same thing with my graphs as well. So if I take, for example, my sales by sales rep, I simply touch that. I'm now seeing it in a different way. I maybe want to present it in a different way as well, so I'm going to actually move my customer code over. And now you can see I'm showing my information in a different way. I also have a drop down here. If I touch this, I can choose a different way of presenting that information. I have the ability to apply filters right from my view as well. So I can actually take a filter that I've saved and apply the filter to that particular view. Now the important thing to note with this is, yes, I do have access and I've got interactive access to all of the views that I've created in the web, but again, there's no special process, there's no special publishing of the views that need to happen. So I can go to my favorites here as an example, and I can see there's my worksheet and there's my chart, the 2 views that I just created. So I can click on my worksheet, and I've got the information presented here. And notice my icons and all of that are still showing, and I've got my chart with the pie chart that I created. We also have visibility into our dashboards. So here is my dashboard that we created, okay, with the 3 views running at once, a worksheet and 2 pie charts. But we also have the ability to interact with our dashboards in different ways. So for example, I have a dashboard that's been created that has dynamic links in it. So it's called my customer performance. And what this gives me the ability to do is I've got multiple views playing here. But if you notice, it's a little bit cut off. My iPad is very small. But I have access to all of my customer records that I can see here, and it's showing me my total sales. And I've got 6 views relating to all of my customers. All I need to do is click on one of these views, click on one of these customers, I should say, and this information is now specific to that customer. Okay. Let's choose Beverly Hills Bike Shop. I'm sure it's significantly warmer in Beverly Hills than it is here in Pittsburgh. But I can see at a glance here what my total sales are and what my margin is. I can see other information that's meaningful. And again, I can touch any one of these sections of the graph and see the values that they represent. I also have, this is what we call geospatial analysis. It basically allows me to take my sales or my customers and map them along longitude and latitude so that I can see where my sales are happening. Now this happens to be both of these customers. I can simply deselect my first customer, and now this information is specific to that customer that I have selected. Now that's just with the customer records on the left here, where I instantly create a customer dashboard showing me my sales rep that's selling to that customer, showing me the product group that customer that is purchasing, showing me my sales evolution, so over the course of the period, how my sales is doing with that customer, quarterly analysis here, and profit and margin analysis up here. Now that's across all of my companies, but you'll notice I also have buttons at the top here. If I select a button, that's going to update my customer list and all of my views on this dashboard for that customer. Sorry, for that company. Okay? And I can run it for multiple companies here if I want. Okay. A lot of interactivity here using the mobile tool. The last interface to talk about is the Excel add-in, which gives me the ability to take those views that I've created, or sorry, take those processes that I've created and report them in Excel. I'm just going to click on that. It's going to open up Microsoft Excel for me. And I've got a sample report that exists, but again, this is just to show you by the logging in here that it's all secure. Okay. When I log in, it does go through a calculation process because it's updating the information that I've got in here, and you'll see in a second that it was very quick to calculate, and I've got a lot of information that's being refreshed in here. But as an example, let's just start by building a simple trial balance in Excel. I can go into the add-ins, and this is where I've got all of my Sage Enterprise Intelligence tools available to me. And I can build what's called a data extraction. That gives me the ability to pull out information quickly and easily. So I'm going to select my data extraction. Here's where I can choose the process that I'm pulling up for the data that I'm selecting to pull out. So I'm going to say, I'm going to select my GL transaction details. And I'm going to select my account code and my account description. Okay? That's what I want to appear here and here. I want to say I want one line per GL account, and I'm going to say OK. When I do that, it instantly pulls my GL account codes and my description for each of those GL accounts. Instantly populated. But now I want to add my debits and credits. To do that, I'm going to use a formula that's going to pull that information out real time. So I can come in here and I can say, you know what, this is a formula. I want to choose my GL account details. This time I want it to be my ledger debit. And I want it to be a sum for my ledger debit. And I want to hard code my account. I want to say, give me the debit for the account that's in that field, in that cell. So I'm going to select that option. I'm going to turn that off. And I also want to specify the year and period. Okay? But for now, I'll just leave it like that. I'm going to say OK. And there's my formula. Now, you don't have to remember that formula because, as you saw, we've got a formula wizard. What that wizard allows me to do, though, is I can simply Control-C, copy that, paste it over here. And now that I'm on this cell for my credit, I simply go back to my formula wizard. It's got all my details there for that formula. All I need to do is change it from a ledger debit to a ledger credit and say I want my sum. And now I've got my sum for that GL account. Oops. All right. Now all I need to do is refresh my data. When I do my data extraction refresh, it copies that formula down across all of my GL accounts. And that works if I add a new GL account. All I have to do is hit that refresh. The new GL account lines will be added. I can actually remove some lines. Okay. I can remove formulas if I want. Okay. But all I have to do is hit refresh, and instantly everything populates. Again, one line per GL account, and my debits and credits are holding strong here. Now, I know this is probably annoying the accountants in the room, but yes, you can use Excel to format the numbers. So if it makes anybody feel better, I know it's going to make me feel better. there's at least my numbers that I can see showing up nicely. All right, I'm going to go and use another example now of taking that extraction tool and pulling the data out in different ways. So I have a drop-down list here that I've created for my customers, and I have different views here that I'm pulling. So these are three separate processes that we've got presenting three different pieces of information. One is going to show me my line margin, one is going to show me my order fulfillment, and one is going to show me my settlement. I can go to that particular column, that particular row, where I've set up my data extraction, and you can see here what information I'm pulling out. Okay. Now I've all said for each of these, when you're pulling out the information, pull it out for the customer that I select here. So I'm going to simply select from my drop-down, I'm going to select the customer record. I'm going to refresh. And instantly now I've got a list of all of my invoices and my line margins for my invoices for that customer, a list of all my sales orders, and this looks very bad, the number of days it took me to ship that, and then my settlement, so what invoices are outstanding. Change the customer, okay. Refresh my data, and again, now I've got different information specific to that customer. That's a powerful way to build reports and dynamic dashboards in Excel, okay, with specific information here. And again, remember that these are three different processes that are being run, three different data pulls that are happening when I hit that data extraction refresh button. I want to simplify this a little bit. I don't know the customer name, so again, I can go back to my formula wizard, and I can say, you know what, I want my customer name. I want it to come from my sales analysis, and I want it to be my customer description. And my customer code for that description is over here. Okay. I'm going to say OK. And notice it's populated with that customer. If I change the customer record, my customer name has changed, and I can hit data extraction refresh, and my data is now set up as well. Last thing to show here, that concept of linking out back to Sage ERP X3 that we can do on the dashboard, that we can do on the views on the web, we have the ability to access here within Excel as well. There's a link to formula that I can build, and I can say, you know what, I'm going to link to the customer, and that customer number that I'm going to link to is sitting here on this cell. I'm going to say OK. There's the link, and it sets it up as a hyperlink in Excel for you. So if I take a look here, there's my customer C3102. I can exit out of here, maybe change my customer record, refresh my data, and when I click on that hyperlink, it's going to take me to the next customer, which is C3301. Okay. So again, from my Excel, I have access to all the information I need to make my strategic decisions, but I still have access to click on that link, go into X3, and look up my business partner analysis, my business partner situation, my risk analysis, maybe editing the terms code of the customer, because I'm starting to see that that customer has a significant amount of invoices that are overdue, and I want to have immediate action right away to stop the credit for that customer. Okay? Now that's just some examples of the way you could use the Excel add-in. We also have the ability to build pivot tables, but that's pretty boring now considering some of the other functionality that you've seen, I believe. But we have the ability to build pivot tables as well, and use all of the functionality of Excel to build, top 5 lists and things like that. But as you can see, based on all of that functionality that you've seen, we now have the ability to build things like our financial statements with simple drop-downs, and you'll notice the numbers automatically update. Okay. Well, apparently year 1 wasn't a good year, but there we go. We now have some more information sitting there as a balance sheet. We've got a trial balance, and we're using slicers, which is an an Excel functionality. So I can change this to a different period. I can choose a different dimension here. Choose assembly, and you can start seeing more information showing up here. I've got conditional formatting so that negative numbers are showing up in red. I have the ability to see pivot tables and build both charts, to see an income statement here and build charts as well. And I also have the ability to use the Excel what-if analysis function to analyze my numbers a little bit better. So I can build my scenarios and use the what-if analysis that's built into Excel to navigate, what would be my optimal cost of sales to generate the highest revenue, as an example. Okay. So a lot of different functionality we have here using the Excel functions. Okay. And that's the Excel add-in. The last thing to talk about to round out the whole discussion would be to talk a little bit about distribution. The first thing to talk about in terms of distribution is I'm going to go back into the web and to say that when we're building our views, because we have obviously user access rights, and it's specific to Sage Enterprise Intelligence, we can define security at a user level such that when I'm creating my views, a user will only have access to the information that they have been given access to. What I'm trying to say here is that in many other reporting tools, if I needed to create a report for some users that only have access to see information for company 10, and then I have other users that only need to see information for company 20, I might have to create two separate reports, one for company 10, one for company 20, and of course a third report for any users that need to see all companies. Right? With Sage Enterprise Intelligence, these views that we manage, we can set up user access rights down to the view level. So I don't have to create three different flavors of a view. It allows me to manage a fewer number of views, certainly, and it allows me to restrict user access rights along specific fields, as an example. So I'm logged in as admin here. I'm going to run the worksheet that I created. You'll see I've got all three companies here that I can see. I'm going to log in again, but this time I'm going to log in as a user that only has access to company 10. Now you'll see that this user only has visibility to the views that we've given them access to. So there's my demonstration reports. There's the customer invoices. It's all the same as you saw from the user. There's the worksheet and the chart that we created today. But this user only has company 10 access. When I run that worksheet, that user is only seeing company 10. It's the same worksheet that I ran over here for admin. There's no multiple flavors of the worksheet. It's just based on the user rights. They're only able to see the information that they have access to seeing. Okay? So that's an important concept, and that extends all the way out to graphs. It extends to dashboards and so on. The other thing to mention is when we're talking about sharing this information across the organization is how do we distribute these views? We've got a tool under administration that allows me to build a schedule. So I can create a job here. I can give it a description. I can choose whether I'm going to take my views and export them and attach them to emails that I'm sending out to people, or maybe I just want to publish them on a network drive or like SharePoint as an example. Okay? And then maybe I want to send an email out to everybody to say, hey, the reports are sitting there on the server. Go take a look. Here's where I can choose what views I have access to. So if I scroll a little bit down, you'll see my customer invoices. Here's my chart. I can simply add that view. I can add my worksheet as well. I have the ability to choose different flavors of the view. So how am I sending this out? Am I going to give them HTML access? Am I going to send it out as an Excel view? Am I going to send it out as a PDF? I also have the ability to distribute Excel views as well, so Excel files. So I can take a file. Okay, I need to choose the file path. Okay, let me just say here my demo as an example. And you'll notice that I have the ability to apply parameters so that when I run those reports and when I send those reports, it's going to run those reports first, and it'll put in whatever formulas, whatever parameters I feed into it here. And I can send it out as a PDF, or I can send it out as an Excel spreadsheet or what have you. Okay? You'll notice here I also have the ability to choose what sheets I want to send. So if I click on the ellipsis here, based on the file that I've got, there was the trial demo worksheet that I had, there was the extraction demo worksheet that I had. I could choose what worksheets I'd be distributing. The next area in the scheduler is to figure out what users and groups you would be sending these reports out to. I can choose my. What I'd like to point out on the schedule is that we do have the ability to specify an expire by date. So if you've got any sort of seasonal promotions that you're doing, or you've got some sort of flash report that you're running on a periodic basis and it only happens for a little period of time, and then you want to stop distributing the report, you can put an expiry date on that so that you're not clogging up people's inboxes, or you're not unnecessarily producing reports to go on a server for a promotion that's ended. So those are the key functions with Sage Enterprise Intelligence. And the last thing that I want to wrap up with is we've been talking about distributing the reports across the organization. And I started out by talking about the dashboard in Sage ERP X3 and saying that, yes, we can put our KPIs on Sage ERP X3. But with Sage Enterprise Intelligence, I can take the views from Sage Enterprise Intelligence and put them on my X3 dashboard. So I've got an example here of that same interactive dashboard that you saw, where I now have it sitting on my X3 dashboard. Imagine this. I'm a user that manages my customer sales. When I log into X3, this is the first thing that I see. And I can click on this link here, and it's going to refresh my views. Might need to refresh the entire thing here. But it's going to refresh my views for that specific customer. There we go. So I'm going to choose this customer here, and now instantly I see how well that customer is performing. Okay. Maybe I want to look at that customer for a particular company. I can select the company up top here as well. This really takes my gadgets, my KPIs that I put on my X3 dashboard, and makes it a lot more impactful, because I've got my dynamic labels and my filters going on my Sage Enterprise Intelligence dashboard. So to wrap up, those are some of the key things that we have the ability to access in Sage Enterprise Intelligence. I'm just going to fast forward here. I was on the wrong slide. There we go. So a little recap of all the things we covered. I don't think we need to go over the invoices again. So we were talking a little bit about the power of Sage Enterprise Intelligence and how it really empowers end users. Talked about the different interfaces that we have. And we've got a little bit more information on each of the interfaces that we've got. So the web interface, the key thing to remember is that it's intuitive, it's interactive, it's very easy to use, and it's browser agnostic. The mobile interface is more than just a viewer. It allows you to interact with those views, moving information around, presenting the information on different graphical formats. If you've got dashboards that have dynamic labels, I can simply touch something and everything refreshes for me. And it's also device agnostic. And we talked about the Excel add-in, where quite easily and effectively I can build formulas in place to build analysis reports, financial reports, whatever you have, and I have the ability to extract data real time very quickly out of Sage ERP X3 and put it into Excel for analysis. And so to wrap up, this is some information that customers are saying about Sage Enterprise Intelligence. The thing to note here is that Sage Enterprise Intelligence has existed for Sage ERP X3 for some time now. So it's a proven and trusted product for many of our customers that are on Sage ERP X3 right now. And having said all of that, I'm down to the last minute, which is perfect.